Okay, let's dive in. We've got this stack of material here on a pretty major event, WWE's Money in the Bank from June 7th, 2025.
Yeah, always a big one on the calendar.
Absolutely. So our mission today really is to unpack all this info, pull out the key insights, maybe some surprising facts, and just get a solid handle on what went down at this show.
Sounds good.
And there's definitely some interesting stuff to unpack here.
Oh, for sure. We'll be looking at, like, the unique location this year, those super high-stakes ladder matches, of course.
Some big title changes, some returns you maybe didn't see coming.
Yeah. And a main event that had some pretty major implications, maybe even for a legend's career path. Lots to get into.
Okay, let's dive in. First things first. Context is key, right? We need to understand where Money in the Bank sits in the whole WWE structure.
Absolutely. This isn't just some random show. It's consistently ranked as one of their absolute biggest events of the year.
Yeah, it's up there in the Big Five, alongside WrestleMania, the Royal Rumble, SummerSlam, and Survivor Series. It's a major, major deal.
And a big part of that prestige comes down to the core concept, the thing that gives the show its name. Those Money in the Bank ladder matches.
Right. Explain that a bit for anyone maybe less familiar.
Sure. So you have these multi-person ladder matches, one for the men, one for the women. Lots of wrestlers in the ring, ladders everywhere, used as weapons, used to climb.
Chaos, basically.
Total chaos.
Yeah.
And the goal is to climb up and grab this briefcase hanging above the ring.
And inside that briefcase, it's not a title belt itself, right? It's something else.
Exactly. It's a contract. A guaranteed shot at a championship, any championship on their brand, whenever they want, wherever they want, for the next full year.
That cash-in potential is huge, isn't it? It creates this constant threat.
It really does. The champion never knows when the briefcase holder might show up. It keeps storylines interesting long after the Money in the Bank event itself is over. It's a brilliant device, really.
So, looking at this specific 2025 event, Saturday, June 7th.
Yep. It was the first time since 2018 that Money in the Bank was held in June. Usually it's been in May or July more recently.
Huh, a slight calendar shift. And the location, that was a big first, according to the source.
Massive first. It was held at the Intuit Dome in Inglewood, California.
Which is in the Los Angeles area.
Exactly. And you can't really talk about the Intuit Dome without mentioning, well, its recent significance for WWE, can you?
You mean the Netflix connection?
Exactly. This was the same place they held the very first Monday Night Raw broadcast on Netflix earlier in the year. So it already feels kind of historic in this new era.
Yeah, holding Money in the Bank there felt intentional, like cementing its place.
It really did. A statement, maybe? And the source makes a point of saying this was the first ever Money in the Bank held in California, period. And the first in the LA metro area.
That's pretty significant. Now, attendance figures. We got a couple of numbers floating around.
What did the sources say?
Well, the official announced number, Michael Cole said it on air, was 17,374.
Okay.
But then WrestleTix, you know, they track this stuff super closely. They had it slightly lower, 17,069.
Right. Pretty close, really, within a few hundred. Often happens they announced it as sold out, which is standard.
Yeah, standard procedure.
You need that energy for a show like this, and it sounds like they had it.
Now, the wrestlers involved, typically Raw and SmackDown guys and girls, right?
Primarily, yes. That's standard for these big cross-brand events. But this year, the source points out something unique.
Oh, yeah.
There was a wrestler included from Lucha Libre AAA Worldwide. That's WWE's sister promotion down in Mexico.
Okay. So a bit of cross-promotion going on.
Exactly. And it wasn't totally out of the blue either. The source provides some context here. This Money in the Bank was part of a whole weekend of events.
Right. I saw that. There was another show earlier the same day.
Yep. At the Kia Forum nearby, WWE's developmental brand, NXT, had their Worlds Collide event. And that show heavily featured wrestlers from AAA.
Okay, so the AAA presence on the main Money in the Bank card ties into that bigger picture, that weekend theme of WWE and AAA working together. Makes sense.
And how people actually watched this show. That saw a pretty major change, too, especially internationally.
Yeah, talk about that. Still pay-per-view and Peacock in the U.S.
Correct. Traditional PPV globally, Peacock streaming in the States. But internationally, this was the first Money in the Bank to live stream on Netflix in most markets.
Netflix, wow, that's a huge shift.
It is. The source explains it's because the WWE network got merged into Netflix in most international countries starting back in January 2025. Though the source does mention it was still on the standalone WWE network in a few places where older contracts were still active.
Still, that Netflix integration is a landmark change in how wrestling is distributed globally.
Definitely. So, okay, we've set the scene, the logistics, the broadcast landscape. Let's talk about how these matches actually come together.
Yeah, the storylines. Because as the source says, these aren't just random matches. They're the payoff to scripted narratives built on TV each week.
Exactly.
And a huge part of that build-up for this event is qualifying for those Money in the Bank ladder matches. You don't just get handed a spot.
No way. You have to earn it. And the source breaks down exactly how the fields were filled for both the men's and women's matches.
Okay, let's start with the men's match. 6 spots available.
6 spots. 3 from Raw, 3 from SmackDown. And they were all decided in triple threat qualifying matches over several weeks of TV.
Right. The source has the dates and winners. Kicked off May 16th.
Yep. May 16th, SmackDown. First qualifier was Solo Sikoa. He beat Jimmy Uso, his own family member, and Rey Fenix.
Bloodline implications right there. Then the next week on SmackDown.
May 23rd. LA Knight got his spot. He went over Aleister Black and Shinsuke Nakamura.
Big win for LA Knight. Always popular. What about Raw?
Raw's qualifiers started May 26th. Penta, he got in by beating Chad Gable and Dragon Lee.
Who else from Raw?
Same night, May 26th Raw, Seth Rollins punched his ticket. He beat Finn Balor and Sami Zayn. That's a tough field to get through.
No kidding. 2 former world champs. So that's 2 from Raw. Back to SmackDown for the 3rd spot.
Right, May 30th SmackDown. Andrade got the win there, defeating Carmelo Hayes and Jacob Fatu.
Andrade, another guy with international acclaim. And the final spot.
That was decided on the June 2nd Raw. The mysterious El Grande Americano got the win over AJ Styles and CM Punk.
Wow. Beating Styles and Punk, that's a huge statement win for El Grande Americano, whoever that is.
Definitely raises eyebrows.
Yeah.
So the final lineup for the men's match was Solo Sikoa, LA Knight, Penta, Seth Rollins, Andrade, and El Grande Americano.
That's a really interesting mix, isn't it? You've got faction guys like Sikoa, Rollins maybe with his new crew.
Established stars like Andrade and Rollins, a massive fan favorite in LA Knight.
The unique lucha style of Penta, and this wild card in El Grande Americano. Lots of potential directions.
Exactly. A really diverse field, which usually makes for a great ladder match.
Okay, what about the women's side? Same structure. 6 spots, 3 from each brand.
Yep, identical structure. 6 women, 3 Raw, 3 SmackDown, all qualifying via triple threats over that same May 16th to June 2nd period. The source lays out those results too.
All right, let's run through them. First one.
May 16th, SmackDown again. Alexa Bliss got her spot, beating Chelsea Green and Mitchin.
Bliss, a former winner.
Yep, she's done this before. Then Raw had 2 qualifiers on May 19th.
Okay.
Roxanne Perez got in by defeating Becky Lynch and Natalya, and Rhea Ripley also qualified, beating Kairi Sane and Zoe Stark.
Perez getting a win over Lynch and Natalya is a big deal for her, and Ripley obviously a huge force.
Absolutely. Then back to SmackDown, May 23rd. Julia qualified. She's a big international name. She beat Charlotte Flair and Zelina Vega.
Another huge win, beating Flair. The women's field is shaping up strong.
Definitely. May 30th, SmackDown, Naomi got her spot, defeating Jade Cargill and Nia Jax. That's overcoming some serious power.
For sure. And the final spot.
June 2nd, Raw. Stephanie Vaquer got the last place. She also wrestled at Worlds Collide, another international talent. She beat Ivy Nile and Liv Morgan.
Okay, so the women's field. Naomi, Alexa Bliss, Julia, Rhea Ripley, Roxanne Perez, and Stephanie Vaquer.
And again, look at that mix. You've got established stars, former champions like Ripley, Bliss, Naomi.
And then this exciting group of newer faces or international stars like Perez, Julia, Vaquer.
It's like a great blend. You need that variety in a ladder match. The power game from someone like Ripley, the experience of Bliss and Naomi, the hunger and maybe different styles from Perez, Julia, and Vaquer. Sets things up nicely.
Definitely. Now, beyond the ladder matches, the source highlights some specific one-on-one rivalries that were coming to a head at this event. One big one was for the Women's Intercontinental Championship.
Right. Lyra Valkyria defending against Becky Lynch. And this one had some real heat behind it based on the source.
Yeah, talk about the history there. It goes back to WrestleMania 41.
It does. Kind of surprisingly, they actually teamed up and won the women's tag team titles at Mania.
Oh, I remember that. But it didn't last long.
Not at all. They lost the belts the very next night on Raw. And according to the source, that loss immediately triggered Becky Lynch turning heel. She just snapped and attacked Valkyria.
Wow, talk about a quick turn. From partners to enemies just like that?
Exactly. So that set up their first big singles match at the Backlash event for Valkyria's women's IC title. Valkyria retained.
But Lynch wasn't done with her.
Nope. The source says Lynch attacked her after the Backlash match, too. Kept the feud simmering.
Okay, so how did we get to the Money in the Bank rematch?
The key moment, according to the source, was on the May 19th Raw. Becky Lynch was in her Money in the Bank qualifying match.
The one Roxanne Perez won?
Right. And Lyra Valkyria interfered, deliberately cost Becky the match and her spot in the ladder match.
Payback for the attacks, maybe? But that really escalated things.
Totally. So with Becky denied that MITB opportunity by Valkyria, she demanded another title shot, but with a twist.
This is the last chance stipulation the source mentioned.
Exactly. Proposed by Lynch on the May 26th Raw. The terms were pretty heavy. If Lynch lost this match at Money in the Bank, she could never challenge for the women's IC title again as long as Valkyria held it.
Wow. That's a huge risk for Becky. What was the other side of the stipulation?
If Lynch won, Valkyria would have to publicly acknowledge Becky Lynch as the superior competitor.
Ooh, that's personal.
Very. And the source notes this acknowledgement thing was a callback to something from an old NXT match they had, so it had history.
So it's not just about the title. It's career stakes for Lynch regarding that belt, and this deeply personal pride element forcing that acknowledgement. Huge drama built in.
Massive stakes.
Yep.
Really elevated the match beyond just a standard title defense.
Okay, now let's talk about what was probably the biggest marquee match based on the names involved. The tag team match.
Oh, yeah. Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso versus John Cena and Logan Paul.
What a pairing on that other side. This source traces this back to WrestleMania 41 as well, right? A lot happened there.
A ton happened there. First, Jey Uso wins the Royal Rumble, last eliminating Cena, which is a key detail. Then Jey wins the World Heavyweight Championship on night 1 of Mania. Huge moment for him.
Then night 2.
John Cena beats Cody Rhodes to win the undisputed WWE Championship.
The source mentions this plan he stated.
Yeah, this is wild. Cena apparently said his plan was to ruin wrestling by retiring at the end of 2025 while still holding the top title.
Whoa, that's dark. A legendary figure turning heel with the goal of basically undermining the entire industry on his way out.
Pretty shocking motivation. So after Mania, Cody took some time off, understandably. Jey Uso, as the new world champ, got into it with Logan Paul.
Okay, so how did Cena get involved with Uso and Paul leading to this tag match?
The source points to the Saturday night's main event show on May 24th. Cena confronted Jey Uso right before Uso was set to defend his title against Logan Paul.
And Cena's trying to get in Jey's head.
Exactly. Tying into his new heel persona. Questioning wrestling's integrity if a YouTuber, as he called Paul, could win the world title, linking it all back to his plan to ruin wrestling.
So he's basically saying, if this guy wins, it proves my point that wrestling is a joke, and I'm right to want to destroy it as champion.
Pretty much that, yeah. And then, during the Uso versus Paul title match, Cena actually tried to help Logan Paul win.
Wait, even after trash-talking him as a YouTuber?
Yep, a very strange alliance there. But Cody Rhodes made his return right then and stopped Cena's interference.
Okay, so Cody's back, Cena's aligned with Paul. The tag match makes sense now.
Right. Cody announced it, him and his buddy Jey Uso against Cena and Paul. Match confirmed for Money in the Bank.
The layers there are insane. You've got champion versus champion with Uso and Cena.
You've got Cody seeking revenge against Cena for WrestleMania.
You've got the hero Uso being targeted by this cynical Cena-Paul duo.
And it's all under the shadow of Cena's planned retirement. And this being, as the source explicitly states, his final Money in the Bank appearance as an active wrestler.
Man, the pressure and the story in that match alone. Incredible. What kind of dynamic would Cena and Paul even have as partners?
Now, it's a huge question going in, right? The ultimate company man turned ultimate cynic paired with the ultimate self-promoting outsider. Fascinating clash.
Okay, one more match build-up mentioned in the source, and this one was different. The Intercontinental title match.
Yeah, Dominik Mysterio defending against Octagón Jr. This one, as the source notes, came together literally on the day of Money in the Bank.
How did that happen? It was during the Worlds Collide show earlier.
Exactly. Dominik, with Liv Morgan, was apparently at ringside watching a match where Octagón Jr.'s team beat the LWO.
And Dom being Dom, he couldn't just let them celebrate.
Nope. Source says he interrupted, started mocking Octagón Jr., specifically bringing up Dom's own father, an LWO leader, pushing buttons.
Classic Dominik, so that led to a fight.
Led to a brawl, yeah. And right there, in the heat of the moment, Dominik issued the challenge. His IC title on the line later that night at Money in the Bank.
And Octagón Jr. accepted.
Accepted on the spot. So, boom, you've got an IC title match booked just hours before the main show starts.
That's wild. Adds a real element of spontaneity compared to the other matches that were built for weeks. Okay, I think we've covered the setup pretty thoroughly. Let's get into the event itself, match by match.
And it's clear they put thought into it right from the kickoff show's end.
Right, it wasn't just like lights on, show starts. There's that transition. They kick things off with the national anthem. Victor Solomon performed it.
From The Voice. Top 5 finalist, yeah.
Yeah.
That sets a certain tone, doesn't it? A bit formal, maybe patriotic, before the wrestling chaos begins.
Totally.
Gives it that big event feel right away.
It does. And then the main broadcast kicks off, and boom, those sweeping aerial shots.
Oh, yeah, the classic LA montage, Dodger Stadium, the Hollywood sign.
Grounds you immediately. Before you even see the arena properly, you know where you are. And the commentary apparently leaned into that.
Sources say they mentioned WWE's history in the area, so it's like, we belong here, this place is part of our story too. Yeah. It connects the event to a legacy.
Makes sense. And, you know, speaking of history, LA itself, wow, WWE has run so many big shows there.
Oh, for sure. Venues all over the city.
Yeah.
WrestleMania, SummerSlam. Yeah. LA is a major hub for them.
But the sources pointed out something really specific, tying it right back to this event 20 years ago.
Yeah, this is cool. 20 years before this show, the first ever Money in the Bank ladder match happened right there in the LA area. WrestleMania goes Hollywood.
Talk about full circle. Holding the 20th anniversary, basically, of the concept in the city where it debuted. That adds a nice little layer, doesn't it?
It really does. A nice bit of historical resonance. Grounds the whole thing.
And they didn't waste time getting to the action, did they? The sources highlight how quickly they previewed the night's matches.
Yeah, very efficient. They ran down the card, showing the variety, hitting the big Money in the Bank matches, obviously, both men's and women's.
Stacked lineups for those. And woven into these previews, the sources noted all that B-roll footage.
Ah, yes. The arrival shots and backstage glimpses.
Not just generic stuff either. Specific moments like Cody Rhodes turning up and Jey Uso is there with his son.
Jace. That's a nice touch. Then you get Logan Paul, naturally, with his whole entourage. Very different vibe. Next, we see Becky Lynch walking around backstage as Michael Cole reiterates the stipulations in her match.
And then contrast that with Liv Morgan and Dominik Mysterio just sitting on a sofa backstage.
Kind of casual, almost intimate. The sources pointed that out. And also Alexa Bliss with her Lily doll. Little character beats.
Right. And Seth Rollins with his crew, including Paul Heyman, which is interesting. LA Knight walking in. Rhea Ripley texting.
It feels deliberate, doesn't it? Like the sources suggest these aren't just random clips. They're little story starters, hints about mood or alliances.
Exactly. Planting seeds, like you said. This all leads into the main video package, which sounds like it tied everything together.
It started off almost cynical.
How so?
Well, it was drawing parallels between chasing money in the real world and what motivates wrestlers. It actually said something like, money is the answer to 99% of the world's problems.
Whoa, okay. That's quite a statement to lead with for a wrestling show built around a money briefcase.
Right. It kind of frames the wrestlers as just being motivated by greed, by the potential payday of being champion. But then almost immediately,
It flipped.
it flipped completely. The video package pivoted and said, no, actually, Money in the Bank isn't really about money. It's about power. It's about opportunity. Changing your life, maybe your last chance at the top. The contract itself becomes a currency, not just the potential cash.
So you get this immediate contrast setup. Is it about the literal money and wealth? Or is it about the status, the power, the chance to grab that brass ring? It sort of asks you to think about what's really driving these people.
Exactly. It adds this thematic layer, right?
Right.
Are they climbing for financial security or for the prestige, the main event spot, the ability to dictate terms? It gives you something more to chew on than just grab the briefcase.
Climbing the ladder for the contract, climbing the corporate ladder, that kind of thing.
Pretty much. And then back in the arena, pure spectacle.
Yeah.
The briefcase is up there, pyro goes off, the theme music, cash in is blasting. Michael Cole officially welcomes everyone.
And declares it sold out, although there was
Yeah.
a little detail about that.
Oh, yeah. The sources mentioned that despite Cole saying sold out, you could apparently see empty seats right at the start. Reports suggested fans were still getting in.
Huh. A small discrepancy, but interesting. That little bit of reality versus the polished presentation.
It really is.
Let's talk sponsorships, because based on these sources, this show felt pretty loaded with
Oh, absolutely loaded. You couldn't miss it. But then you look at the ring itself, just plastered with logos.
Yeah, that's become pretty standard, I guess.
The turnbuckles had 7-Eleven logos on them. One source specifically flagged that as feeling kind of new, or at least more prominent than usual.
I noticed that too. It felt very visible.
It did. And then you get to the ladders themselves, the actual props for the main matches.
Branded ladder.
Yep. Mentioned a cinnamon whiskey branded ladder, integrating sponsors onto the key props like that. That feels like another level.
Wow. Yeah, you can't really miss a bright red ladder with a, flaming logo on it when someone's risking their neck climbing it.
Exactly. Makes the sponsor part of the action, literally. And then, of course, Cash App was the overall presenting sponsor, which, fits the Money in the Bank theme perfectly.
Very on the nose, yeah.
And then you finally land at the commentary desk. Michael Cole, Pat McAfee, Wade Barrett, ready to go.
And Wade Barrett apparently dropped a cool little factoid right away.
He did. The sources got this. He mentioned it was Michael Cole's 28th anniversary, his play-by-play debut way back in '97 on Shotgun.
Wow, 28 years. That's quite specific. Dropping that right at the start.
It's a nice piece of trivia. Adds a bit of history.